Good morning. Everybody's wide awake and warm, right? We need to get up and do like calisthenics or something to get up and get the blood flowing. It is kind of cold in here. So now, for you upperclassmen, we did this last year, and you may or may not remember that. And that's okay that Brad assigns it again, because if the statistics are accurate that say you retain about 10% of what you hear, this ought to get us from the 10% to the 20% level today. So really we ought to do this, 10 times while you're in school? Now, I don't know. It's good to go back and think about things again, even if you've already heard them, and especially with something that's this important. And it's one of those things where really what I'm trying to do today is open your eyes to the idea that you've got some work to go out and do on your own. Some things that you've got to go out and work on, some things that you've got to study, because you're not going to get them here. You didn't get them in high school. You're not going to get them here in full. And so you've got some responsibilities, some things you've got to go out and work on. Now, there are some things that preachers really don't want to talk about. And some of you may remember some of the lists that we had from before, but you want to throw out any ideas, some of the things that preachers don't want to get up and talk about? Money's on the list. It's not the highest thing on the list, but that's one of the reasons I start here. Some preachers don't want to talk about money. Any other thoughts on what some of the other things might be?
Elders.
What?
Elders.
Elders wasn't on the list. And this survey was taken across Christendom, so you're talking about people that don't really work with elders, stuff like that.
Sex.
Sex, not so much on this list. Politics was on the list, which has always fascinated me, because the Bible talks about how we relate to government, so I don't know why we're going to preach on that. Homosexuality and same-sex marriage made the list, abortion made the list, war made the list, women's role in the church and home made the list. Hell made the list. Some preachers don't want to talk about hell. It's in the Bible. So anyway, we won't get off on a tangent. But money is on the list. Now, I go there because why would some preachers not want to talk about money? This is to be interactive. And I know that won't work well for the video, so I'll try to repeat what you say. Why would some preachers not want to talk about money?
Well, there's a movie that came out a couple years ago, There Will Be Blood.
Okay.
And a guy gets really rich on oil, and so the preacher preaches on money the next week.
Right.
And given to the church.
Right. You can be seen or be viewed maybe as self-serving because the church cuts your check. And so if I'm talking about money, it could look like I'm trying to make sure that I get paid. But the Bible talks a lot about stewardship and being blessed and what we do with that.
It's because you won't talk about money because you're a bad steward and people might see that.
And in your preaching already, do you find it more difficult to get up and talk about things that are weaknesses for you? I can't come off as an expert on something where, man, I'm fighting that battle every day, and I hope I don't come off as an expert on anything as it relates to serving God, because we're all saved by the grace of God. None of us deserve to go to heaven, and so that should affect all of our preaching. But if I do a miserable job handling my money, it's hard to get up and talk about stewardship, and it's hard to get up and talk about giving when I haven't placed myself in a good position to be able to handle my own money.
Philip?
Yes, sir.
Believe it or not, that was one of the main problems at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, with our preachers in the South. The country preachers would not preach on giving because they didn't want to appear to be begging the congregation for help. But then a lot of them were destitute because they didn't. And you've got Brother J.C. McQuitty in Nashville saying, you need to start preaching on giving. And so he was looking down on the preachers that wouldn't preach, on giving. But, they were afraid that they'd be perceived the wrong way.
Right.
And so part of that mentality in the South, I think, has been handed down from one generation of preacher to another.
Okay. Very well stated, and I think you're close enough. That should all be captured on the video. Purpose of this is to try to provide you with some tools and some knowledge so that you'll better handle your money or at least put a plan in place to make sure that you better handle your money, so that as it relates to that part of your ministry, when your elders say, okay, we're ready for some lessons on giving, we're ready for some lessons on stewardship, or even if they don't, when it comes time to talk about those things, you're prepared and you're handling that part of your life well. I'm going to start in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, and read several verses from there. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. But as for you, O man of God, I started in the verse where I wanted to end. Verse 6, now there is a great gain in godliness with contentment. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. Okay. Are you rich?
Yes.
Are you rich?
Yes.
One thing we do with the Bible in our country and in our culture that is just bad is when we see somebody saying something about, to those of you who are rich, we go, well, I can zone out. That's not me. That is the guy who's got more money than I do. If you live here, you're rich. It doesn't matter. We're all just a different level of rich. And so for us, anytime the Bible starts talking about those of you who are rich, we ought to snap to attention and pay even closer attention, knowing that we've been blessed with so much. And I understand you're a student right now. It doesn't feel like you've got a lot. But there are a lot of people in the world that would trade places with any one of us in an instant if they had that opportunity. And so, yes, sir.
There's another statistic that says that if you have food every day, if you have clothes, and if you have a roof over your head, and some form of transportation,
right,
whether it be a taxi or something, you're in the top 15% of the world.
Okay. Top 15% of the world if you've got food every day, some form of transportation. Yeah, we could do a lot of statistics, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is we've been blessed with a lot, and so we've got this great responsibility to take good care of and be good stewards over what we have. And so the question becomes, are you going to control your money, or will it chase after and control you? And so that's really where we want to spend these few minutes that we have. Now, our current reality, few people are going to experience money falling from the sky. Hopefully you're not pursuing a career in ministry for a pathway to financial freedom here in our country, because that's while we're rich, ministry's not financial. I never have to think about anything again, and I think you understand that. The other part of our reality is that people are not born knowing how to handle money. I want to read something, and this is out of Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. And it's talking about what a lady said about not growing up knowing how to handle money. And this is a reality, I think, for all of us. At the coffee pot one day, one of my leaders said, we need to get this total money makeover process taught in college. Before she could graduate from a small Christian college, she was required to take a class on how to interview and hunt for a job. She said the class wasn't very hard academically, but its practical implications made it one of the most valuable classes she took in college. We go to school to learn to earn. We earn and then have no idea what to do with the money. According to the Census Bureau, the average family in America last year made $40,816. Now, this book was published in 2003, so you're talking statistics that are a good 10 years old. But even at that, $40,816, even if they never get a raise, the average family will make over $2 million in a working lifetime. And we teach nothing about how to manage this money in most high schools and colleges. You're not here to learn how to manage money. You're here to learn how to earn, learn how to save souls, learn how to be effective in ministry. You're going to earn money along the way, and it's not the role of the school to teach you how to deal with that, okay? And that's why I'm trying to wake you up to the idea that you need to figure out how to handle your money. So we talk about a budget. It's a way of making our money behave. John Maxwell said a budget is people telling their money where to go instead of wondering where it went. That's a pretty good definition. Dave Ramsey, his book we just read from, he says you have to make your money behave, and a written plan is the whip and chair for the money tamer. You've seen the lion tamer go in with the lion. It's very impressive as he deals with the lion. If he doesn't do that right, generally there's a disaster. And in too many cases, people have had disasters in their lives because they don't tame their money. So when you think about a budget, you ought to think about it being a roadmap for your money, a plan, a decision-making tool would be another thing. And having a budget will bless you right now, because I'm sure somebody in the room is thinking, okay, I don't have any money right now. But if you'll learn to do the budget with whatever you have now and make that a habit with whatever you have now, later on when you have more, that habit that you formed is going to bless you. Again, from 1 Timothy 6, verse 17, as for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. God has provided. We are the rich, and so we need to have a plan. So I'm going to give you 3 S words about why you ought to have a budget. Well, the first one's 2 words, and the first one begins with S. But one is stress relief. Okay? What are the top 2 things that typical married people will fight about?
Money being
Money's one. We're big people. I heard it. Sex and money. Those are the top 2. Money ought not to be a thing that we fight over. And there's this huge relief that comes along with you controlling your money rather than it controlling you and causing trouble in your family and all those kinds of things. What the budget becomes is this objective decision-making tool. In other words, if I've got a budget and the budget says we've got X number of dollars, and then if I want to go buy something or my wife wants to go buy something, well, that's not, I want her to have everything she wants. But if the budget is saying the money's not there, that's not me not wanting her to have that. That's our plan, our roadmap, our decision-making tool simply saying we've got to say no to that because it doesn't fit where we are. It has nothing to do with me not wanting you to have something. And so a budget can be a very good as far as decision-making goes. Can everybody say no? Say it.
No.
No. You got to learn that word. And got to learn to use that word for yourselves. I mean, if you're single, learn how to tell yourself no. Because we've got to do that sometimes if a budget's going to work for us. A budget is stress relief, at least in some measure, as you set up a budget and you begin to build some sort of an emergency fund that Dave Ramsey would talk about. There is some stress relief in knowing that you're at least a little bit prepared for the unexpected. Because is the unexpected going to happen? Oh, absolutely. We were talking yesterday about a canoeing incident. You know, the one time you're unprepared, that's when things are going to go wrong. And it'll happen, and it'll happen. That's how life works. And so as I start trying to build a little bit of something, preparing for that unexpected event, it helps me be less stressed out. The second S word I would give you is stewardship that pleases God. There is this overarching theme in the New Testament about the idea that God places things into our hands, and then we're responsible for taking care of things that really don't belong to us and using them in a way that God would have us to. People make it possible for you to be here. How many of you all heard Bill Cosby's presentation? How many of you all picked up on what he said at the very beginning? And I want to get the transcript into chapel one day, if I can put it together. Do you remember what he said right at the beginning? Did it catch your attention at all? Because it really caught mine. He talked about, he said something to the students. He said something about don't fail God. Don't fail Jesus. The idea you come to school and you're learning and people are investing in you to be here. And are you going to apply yourself? Are you going to do a good job? Are you going to be a good steward with the fact that people have put assets in place that allow you to get this education? Even if you're paying, even if you're borrowing money, there's a lot of other people that have paid a lot and sent a lot so that you can get what you're getting here. And so if you get careless with this great opportunity, not only do you fail yourself, but you fail a lot of people that were counting on you to be out there winning souls. And in so many words, Bill Cosby talked about that, and I thought it was very powerful. If somebody's sending you $100 a month to support you while you're in school, and that's $100 that you get in your bank account, are you going to be a good steward of that? They're sending that understanding that you're trying to live and you're trying to eat and you're trying to get by. So are you going to use that money for those things, or are you going to waste it? The third S is strategy. A good budget will provide a lot of credibility for you when you're raising support to be in school. And Jim will talk about new students coming to school as he talks with you about, well, how are you going to be here? One of the things that you've got to have in hand is a budget, because if you show up in front of the church and you're asking them to help you be in school, and you say, well, Derek, Elder Derek, I need money to be in school. It's expensive to go to school. And Derek's first question is going to be what? How much do you need? Well, I just need as much as you can send. Does that work? That doesn't work. But if you pull out your budget and you say, okay, well, here's where I am right now. I know based on these expenses that I've laid out, it costs me this many dollars each month to live. And I've got some Pell Grants, and I've got this coming in, and then I've been out and I've talked to 3 other churches, and I've got $100 a month from each of them coming in. So where I am right now, I'm looking for that last $200 a month, and if I can do that, I'll be able to get by while I'm in school. Is that credible? That's very credible, and it's all based on the fact that you took time to put together a budget. And when you sit down with elders, many of whom are businessmen, because some of the way we do eldering, that's another topic for another day. But they're going to like the fact that you've got numbers in black and white. They're going to like that, and it will bless you. It'll give you credibility. When you get out of here and you're accepting a job offer or contemplating accepting a job offer, can you say no? Say no out loud again. You got to get used to saying it. You got to be able to say no. You go and you meet a church and you fall in love with them and they like you and you like them, and they're offering $35,000 a year. And you've done your budget and you know that it takes $45,000 for you to live. What do you got to say?
No.
You got to say no. Because sometimes we fall in love with that church and we know that they're in love with us, at least for that honeymoon, and we just believe and we're confident that if we say yes, that somehow God is magically going to make it all happen. God blesses us with a lot of things, not the least of which is our ability to think and process, and He gives us the ability to look at numbers and make decisions. And if the numbers just aren't there, there's no larger way to stress out your ministry than to start it knowing that you're not making enough money to make ends meet. And so sometimes you got to say no. When you do say no, you're a lot better off if you do it with facts in hand. Because then you don't sound like, well, I'm just a big money grabber. I'm just after the money. If you can go to those elders and say, man, I love this church. I'm thankful that you want me to come work with you. But I've run the numbers, and here are the numbers. They're right here in front of me. We can't do it on that, and You know, I'm not going to put myself or this church in a bad position, so I've got to say no. They may turn around and say, well, let us look at it. Maybe we can do more. They may do that when you show up with facts in hand. But the budget will help you do that. It'll also put you in a better position to know, well, I might have to go find a second job. Some elders don't like that. You may be going into a situation planning, well, if I can make this much and if my wife can go earn so much. Well, some elders, they think they have control of your wife. And there was a job offer extended just recently over in Mississippi. They were offering a salary, but the salary was for the preacher and for his wife to work in the office several days a week. Well, they've just taken away her ability to go make it more possible for that family to live there. And, of course, questions like that need to be asked up front. Very briefly, in the last 5 minutes or so, well, the point there, if you're looking at a job, ask lots of questions, communicate, don't assume anything, because so many bad preacher-church relationships occur because there was not communication, assumptions were made, church is assuming one thing, you're assuming another. Ask the questions up front, make sure everybody's on the same page, and if it's a church that does a contract, get all that stuff in the contract. It'll bless you and it'll bless the church. Does everybody use Excel spreadsheet program? If you don't use that yet, you might as well go ahead and put that on your list of things you need to get comfortable with. As a preacher, you've got to be a good record keeper, and Excel is very good for keeping up with mileage and expenses and all the kinds of things you've got to keep up with. As far as making a budget, something like Excel works great. You start listing your revenue sources at the top, my preaching salary, and if my wife's working and her salary, and you list all your incomes and add all those up, that's my total revenue. And then you just start listing your expenses, house payment, rent, utilities, food, whatever category for stuff that goes wrong. If you list all your expenses, some of those are fixed. The amount that I'm going to give to God, where does that need to come in my list of expenses? Top. That's a fixed expense. Well, I'll vary that probably off my income to some degree, but if I'm making this much money, God's going to get His first. And so I've got that, and I know that my rent is not going to change, and my utilities, they may vary a little by the season, but I've got to keep the lights on, so that's a fixed expense in that sense. So I put all these things that have to be paid, and then I start putting all the variable stuff down below that, like how much clothing I'm going to buy, and how much are we going to eat out, and all those kinds of things. Savings. And then I do revenues less expenses, and I should have, if I'm budgeting for savings, I ought to end up at a break even, because I've taken care of, I've given a plan for every dollar that's coming in. And if you'll do that, you'll be blessed. And if you want to get down to the specifics of it, if you want some help, come by my office. I'd be glad to help you. I know Jim would be glad to help you, because Jim has worked, with students for years and making sure that as they come into school, they're not going to starve. They're going to have the ability to do what they need to do to get through school and still get by. But that's the importance of a budget. And again, if you'll form a habit of it, it'll become easy for you. If you don't have a lot now, budget now while you don't have a lot, so then when you have more, it'll just be something that sticks with you.